Hello, book friends. Welcome back to the channel. It's Alyssa. Hello, if you are new. I am just popping in here at the start of this video to say hello and also to introduce this interview. I had the opportunity to sit down and chat with one of my favorite indie authors who has now had a couple of her books picked up by Tor, well, Bramble slash Tor, including a book that I love dearly, which is Can't Spell Treason Without T. I got it right. And I have reviews for a couple of her books here on the channel. She writes cozy fantasy, and she also has another sort of darker fantasy that I really love called The Gilded Abyss. We'll get into that, but I just wanted to come in and introduce that I got to sit down with Rebecca and talk about her release with Tor, talk about the book industry, talk about whatever the heck we two of us wanted to talk about, writing, all of that fun stuff. She's a wonderful person. I really enjoy her as a creator, as an author, as somebody who really champions independent self-pub authors on Book Talk and Instagram. And I adore her. And so I felt blessed when I got the opportunity to sit down and chat with her. So I hope you enjoy this interview. And please pick up a copy of Can't Spell Treason Without T when it comes out on May 7th. I think you're going to love it. She has all four books picked up. I think by next year they will all be out, so you'll be able to rather swiftly binge the entire series. And I love it. You'll find out when you watch this interview. Thank you. I'm going to stop talking now. Let's just jump to the interview. I am super excited to have with me today Rebecca Thorne. She is the author of Can't Spell Treason Without T, which I usually say the wrong way around. So I'm very proud of myself for not doing that.
You're not the
Um,
only
yeah, all the time. She's an author of all things fantasy, sci-fi, and romance. She thrives on deadlines and averages 27,000 words a day, which is insane. She has been traditionally published before, and she has pivoted into the self-publishing space. Can't Spell Treason Without T is a bestseller and was recently picked up by Bramble and slash Tor, and will be coming out on May 7th of this year. She has self-pubbed SFF. Oh, sorry. Your self-pubbed SFF thriller, This Gilded Abyss, is one of my favorites, and I
Oh,
cannot wait for you to keep going with that. I know that you've posted a little bit more about that
yeah.
recently, but anyway, so she has an MFA in popular fiction and publishing from Emerson. She has a passion for education, which you can see if you follow her on TikTok. She gives like daily writing advice, guidance for writers, and is always championing indie authors, which I absolutely love. And when you're not writing, or apparently avoiding writing, according to your bio, you
Yeah.
travel the country as a flight attendant. Do you still do that?
I do actually. Yeah, I'm hitting my 10-year anniversary with Southwest Airlines
Mhm.
in April, and I was with United Airlines for a year before that. So I've been in the industry for 11 years, and
Wow.
I really don't have any intention of leaving it, because it's honestly. I read somewhere that the best writing, the best job to further your passions is to get something that's completely opposite of your passion. So, like, if your passion is
Yeah.
sitting on a computer writing a book, do something with your hands for your day job, because then when you get home, all you want to do is be on your computer in silence, and vice
Yeah.
versa. Like, I have a
Yeah.
lot of friends who went into editing and writing careers and they barely write for fun anymore. And meanwhile, I'm out there serving drinks and all I want to do on my overnight is just like, don't talk to
Just
me,
right. Well, I like rarely ever want to talk to people, but because I spend all day talking to patients. But
Yeah.
actually, no, most of my patients don't talk because they're tubed. But that's that's preferable.
No. Oh
But
man.
anyway, you have 3 dogs. I thought you had 2, but you have 3, and, yeah, so welcome, Rebecca. I'm
Thank you.
actually really excited. I know that we've sort of been mutuals for a little while, so it's nice
For
to
sure. Yeah. It
finally
was I
talk
was
to you.
excited when Tor was like, they want to do an interview. I'm like, yes, okay, that sounds awesome.
So,
Definitely excited to be here.
yes. So do you wanna just tell us a little bit about Can't Spell Treason Without T? I'm gonna do this the wrong way around at some point today.
You're
And then
not
if
the only one. Like, most people are like, "Can't spell tea without treason," and I'm like, "Maybe I should have just named it that." Like,
I went back and rewatched my original review, and I was like, every time it's the wrong way around.
again, like, you are not the only one. I feel like that is probably one of the most common misphrases of this, you know? And a lot of
Mhm.
people, I feel like they just are like, "Oh, treason and tea," and then they don't say the full title anyway, so no one actually knows what the full title is. Like, I kind of vibe. I'm like, "I'm just happy to be here." So
Well, it did really well. So It doesn't matter. Either way, it's
It's true.
wonderful. So do you wanna
It's
tell us
true.
a little bit about the book,
Yeah.
maybe what
So
inspired it, why you went to cozy fantasy, all that fun stuff?
oh yeah. So I found cozy fantasy in a time of my life when I was really kind of down in the dumps. I was living with my parents after multiple failed like living situations that just kind of all blew up in my face at once. And I really just wanted something like low stakes, cozy. It was 2022, and I was like desperate for something cozy. And I just gotten on TikTok and started seeing that cover around. So when I found it in a Barnes and Noble, my eye kind of drew to it, and I was like, "Oh, I've seen this book before. I think I heard of this." So I picked it up off the shelf, and of course, I'm a nerd. So the first thing that I do is look for the imprint of who published it, and I found out that it was by like a press called Cryptid Press with like this like tentacle coming out, and I was just like, "What the hell? I've never even heard of that," you know. So I did some research and found out that it was in fact self-published, but I found it at my Barnes
Mhm,
and Noble, and that was kind of
mhm,
like this glass shattering moment for me where I realized that self-published books can get into Barnes and Nobles if they have
mhm,
the right connections and the right kind of hype around them. And
mhm,
that was a moment like I'd been in traditional publishing for 8 years. I'd never heard that. No one talked about that in traditional publishing at the time. So that was kind of the beginning of my, well, maybe I need to leave my agent and try something new journey. So I did actually do that. I saw that Tor had picked up that book, and I kind of
mhm,
watched this. To me, cozy fantasy was coming like a freight train. Like I looked at it and was like, this
mhm,
is going to be the next big thing, like the next big area of fantasy. Like there's no reason for cozy fantasy to not take off after this book set the groundwork so well for it. So to me, I was like, well, in the same way that like the Hunger Games created the dystopian genre as we know it today, maybe not created, but like really fostered it. And then Divergent came in, and everybody, read Divergent because they wanted more like the Hunger Games. I'm like, well, if I can
mhm,
be next book on the scene, I might have a chance of getting some kind of publicity there with a self-published book if people can refer my book as something like Legends and Lattes, but slightly different. So I
mhm,
literally wrote the book over that summer with that in mind. I left my agent in April or May of that year, and then I wrote the book over the summer, and then I self-published it in September. And his re-release with Tor happened in
mhm.
November, I want to say. So it was like six
Yeah, it
months
was like
later.
the fall. Mhm,
Yeah, like that fall. Yeah. So my book had been out for I want to say like a month, month and a half before his book came out. And that was enough for it to start gaining a lot of hype so that when his book came out and everybody found it and started reading it, that exact thing that I was hoping would happen did in fact happen.
it
So
happened.
yeah, so like it was doing pretty well, and then Christmas came and it did really well. And then I started getting publishers reaching out to me in January hoping to publish the book traditionally. And the UK jumped on first. There was a press in the UK that was interested, and then I had happened to coordinate with a new literary agent who does foreign works, and she was
Mhm,
able to take that offer in the UK and negotiate it into a four-house auction, and Tor
nice.
UK won that auction. So then I was kind of like, I asked her, I'm like, well, does Tor US want to come on board? Because like Tor was always my dream publisher, and I never expected that they would be interested in my books, but I was like, maybe one day. So when Tor UK jumped on board, I was like, does Tor US want it too? Because that's always been my dream. And they in fact did. So they're actually doing a simultaneous launch with Tor US and Tor UK for all of the books in this series. But the UK is
Mhm,
doing the hardcover first, and the US is doing the soft cover. And I
okay.
think the US may do a hardcover later on, but I'm not sure. But I know for a fact that the UK is going to follow up their hardcover editions of all four with four softcover edition re-releases in the next several years. So
I feel like I'm just gonna end up with a stack because I have so many copies of I have now of
I
Can't Spell
honestly
Treason
like
Without Tea.
I feel like I'm just going to need an entire bookshelf of the different versions of my book at this point.
That's the joy of being an author, like, you get to do all that. Tour, like, I love tours so much.
I never honestly
They
like we all
spoil
hope for
me.
it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what is Can't Spell Treason Without Tea about?
So yeah, yes, sorry.
Oh, it's
ADHD.
alright.
So can't spell
You
treason
have
without
2
T.
people with ADHD talking to each other. This is gonna go somewhere.
It's gonna be chaos. Yeah, we're just gonna go down rabbit holes all over.
It's
So Can't Spell Treason Without Tea follows Reyna, who is a queen's guard. So she guards the queen of this really like vicious country. And then we follow Kianth, who is the most powerful mage in the world. And they are in love, and they have been dating secretly for about a year. And they finally agree to take the risk and the plunge and start their lives together. And they always dreamed about opening up a bookshop that serves tea because Kianth likes books and Reyna likes tea. And they're like, this is the perfect way to marry those ideas and then
Mhm.
get the thing that we all wanted to do. So it very much plays off like the cottage core ideal of like leaving your intense lives behind and going up and doing what your passion is instead and making a profit and finding family and finding a new home in the process. So it's basically that in a book. That's it. That's what the book is.
That's the book.
Yeah.
Ha I love so I found cozy fantasy sort of in similar as I think like everybody. They read Legends and Lattes and they were like, "Oh my god, I didn't know I needed this in my life."
I
And,
didn't
you know,
know I needed this,
obviously
right?
apparently I need this. So
Yeah.
I predominantly read I mean, I read fantasy obviously, but I read predominantly lit fic. I get teased all the time by my fantasy reader friends that like I'm the lit fic girly whenever they bring me in.
I
But
love that.
I need cozy fantasy in my life. Like I
Mhm.
need magical creatures cooking cupcakes. Like I just sometimes you need that breath of fresh air in your life,
Yeah.
especially when you know, we all live in this world. It's not
Yeah,
the
it's not
happiest of
great all
places.
the
So, it's nice to have that escape. So, I was, like, so excited when I finished Legends and Lattes to find other things, and then you came across my feed, and I think you were
Mhm.
looking for ARC readers, and I was like, "Oh, yes,
Yeah,
please."
yeah, you've been
Um,
following me since, since the very beginning.
the
Like, I think
beginning
your review initially was one of the very first reviews that I got for my book, and I was really excited. It was really
I loved it so much. And, we could talk a little bit more about some of your darker stuff with this Gilded Abyss later,
yeah,
but, so it's not always happy in
yeah.
Rebecca Land, but it is really lovely. So thank you for writing it because I really loved it. But how does this version differ from the self-pub version?
So that's a really good question. We I'll be honest, my publisher didn't really ask me to change hardly anything about this book. Like they got it and they loved it in its current form, which was
Mhm,
really great. Even for pirates, they really didn't ask me to do much at all. For both of
mhm,
these books, kind of were just giving me free reign to do anything I want. But I had some ideas. Like I wrote Can't Spell Treason Without Tea over the span of probably 6 weeks between June and July 2022. So like I knew that there were problems with it. Like I had edited it, I was working on learning how to self-publish. There were a lot of moving parts that I didn't really have the time to dedicate 100% of the focus towards that book that I wanted to. So when I got this opportunity to do an actual sweeping edit for it, they had some suggestions, but most of it was me going through like I had to pour myself a glass of wine and I opened up my
mhm.
I went through the reviews and like I never go on Goodreads for my books because like authors are not supposed to be in those spaces anyway, and frankly, it's very bad for our mental health if we do. But I bolstered myself and I poured my glass of wine and I was like, we're gonna find everything with the intent of fixing it. So I went through all the 1 star reviews, like and all the 2 star reviews, all of them, and I made notes of things that I saw recurring through those points.
Mhm,
So like a lot of the thing was like in that period of my life, like I said, I was in a very dark place. So their relationship in the indie version was a little codependent in certain
mhm.
situations. Like I've taken a lot of therapy, I've done a lot of that. So there's a lot of healthy conversations that happen, but then there's a lot of like overreacting panic when one of them gets hurt or something like that. And I wanted to tone that area down as I kind of stepped away from that phase of my life, you know?
Yeah.
So their relationship is a little smoother in my opinion. There was a whole thing where I added bagels to the story because I really love bagels and I didn't
Yeah.
realize the history it has in Jewish tradition. So
Mhm.
I obviously once I realized that that was a problem, I took the bagels out entirely and I replaced them with kolaches, which are from my own heritage. And just kind of little things like that, like the dragon fight in the beginning, in the middle of the book, we toned down a
Mhm.
little bit because some of the dragons actually died in that indie version, and that's not super cozy, are talking to dragons later on, and the dragons play a huge part in the entire series as a whole. So like
Yeah.
the portent, like the dragons become even like bigger in every single novel. So that was something that we were able to kind of tackle. So overall, I would say I probably added about 7,000 words of that, and then I added a one shot at the end. That's another probably 8,000 words.
Yeah.
And the one shot, some people may have read the beginning of it because it was like a kind of like free story that I like added on, but I expanded it immensely and edited it extensively. So if like it's their meeting, it's like how they met.
Mhm.
So some people have read
Yeah.
that, but no one's really read it in this current iteration yet. So
It is really lovely just reading their backstory. I, like, feverishly did a reread of the arc that Tor sent over of the new one, and I was, like, so
I had
excited to
so much
get a
fun
little
writing
background.
writing their first date was so wonderful to me because they have this huge power imbalance, and I was like, how did they
Yeah.
get over that in the beginning? Like Kiantha is the best mage that ever lived, and Reyna is like this measly palace guard who like is really cool in her own right, but like not to that caliber. How do they get over that? How do they realize that they're actually interested in each other as people instead of just because of their positions? So that was a really fun thing to explore in that one shot.
Well, I really loved their relationship in both versions. I think that it's so there's not a lot of like spice and like smutty stuff, but there
Yeah,
is a
there's no
lot of
spice in actual books.
yeah, there's a lot of really just like maybe I also have my own issues with relationships, but I thought really healthy relationships where
Oh,
you had two really caring and respectful partners that
mhm.
want the best for each other. The tension in the books doesn't come from some silly thing between the two of them. It really
Mhm.
comes from all these external forces. Internally, they
Right.
have a wonderful relationship, which I think
Mhm.
we don't see as often. And I really appreciated having that in the book.
Yeah.
Um,
The established relationship was something that I really wanted to play on, because I feel like you don't get to see that very often, and I think that like in the last several years in my own life, I've kind of realized that it's such a detriment when you have fiction that shows this intense meeting and this like hot and heavy will they won't they, and then they get together and they're like happily ever after is done and they close the book,
yeah.
and it's like there's a lot that happens in relationships after you start to date somebody, and while you're learning to like how do you live with them, are there weird quirks that they do, like what does that look like if you've had long distance for a while and then you move together into one shared space. And I kind of wanted
Mhm.
to explore all of that in the context of a very healthy communication style and a healthy relationship. So that was
Yeah.
I was glad that that really landed because that was definitely my goal with that series.
I mean, if you want the messy nitty-gritty of what happens after you fall in love with somebody, I would suggest lit fic because to
Yeah,
everybody who's a fantasy reader, because lit fic really just dives deep a lot of the times into those character
it's so
relationships and
interesting.
studies.
Yeah, lip sync is not a genre that I've really explored too much, so like I'll definitely put that on my list because I just like I feel like I think just because of the YA version, like YA started
Mhm.
with very young characters. Obviously, they haven't been dating for years, like they're
Yeah.
15, 16. But then as like the YA characters started aging up mentally, if not physically, like as they started
Yeah.
acting like they're in their 20s and 30s, even though they're pretending to be 18 and 19, I
Yeah.
think that I mean, like that genre just aged up with us because we're the ones paying for it, So I think that that was where my my basis was coming from. Like I don't really see that kind of relationship
Yeah.
in books, and I wanted to. So
Yeah. It was really lovely to see, and so I really appreciate it. Do you intend I know that I think you said in a recent video that you have finished all 4 books. I know
all four
Pirates is
books
done,
are
obviously.
finished. Yeah. Hmm.
Is there a little bit more spice as we continue on, or does it
So
stay, like,
So
0
this is
spicy?
actually this is a really weird area for me. The books themselves will not have spice. The 4 books total will not have spice. However, I really enjoy writing spice these days, and I wrote just on a whim. I realized because we added this one shot to the end of Treason, and I realized kind of
Mhm.
in the game that no one had asked me for a one shot to add to Pirates as like another way to kind of get people to buy the book. So I sat down and I wrote like this immensely spicy one shot. Like this thing is like it's spicy enough that when I handed it to my editor, she's a romanticy editor, and she goes, "Wow, this is hot," like so I wrote this like, and it's called The Game, and it basically is where right before their anniversary, Keith and Raina come up with an idea to not touch each other for a week, and like, how
Oh,
does that pan out? So it's like all of like the we can't touch, we can't kiss, we can't do anything, but like the tension is just rising this entire week until like you get this amazing explosion at the end, and I handed it to them, and they're putting it in the re-release for Pirates. So like there will be spice on the book that's coming out in October 1st. There will be spice in the new version of Pirates, but it's a one shot at the very end. Like it has no stakes on the
no
story. It has
bearing.
no there's no bearing. It's just like it's basically like fan fiction of my own characters just thrown into the end of the book. But I
Here
feel
for
kind of
it.
awkward adding it now because it's come to my attention in the last like 3 to 4 weeks after I handed this one shot off and they already added it to production that a lot of teenagers read my books. I did not realize this because I'm just like, well, it's marketed at adults. I've never been shy about that. Like, if you look at any of my marketing, even from the very beginning, I'm like, this is an adult fantasy. It's an adult fantasy.
Mhm.
Um, And now apparently I'm getting all of these messages from like people who like stock books for teenagers in libraries, like in the school libraries and stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God. So yes, there will be spice. As sad as it is, I don't recommend it for the teenagers. There is an
Well,
author's note at the beginning of the one shot that says this is not for an underage audience. It has explicit. Don't do it, you know. But
yeah,
I don't know.
which is gonna make teenagers read it, but
Yeah, I was just like, I feel bad, but I'm also like, as a teenager, I still read that stuff, so like, I don't feel that bad, but maybe I should. I don't know. It's an
no,
adult book,
you
underage kids, you know.
it's an adult book, you covered your butt, it's fine, we're good.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
read it at your own peril, children.
Read at
But
your
I
own
think
peril. Yeah.
but, you know, you have I think it's not as bad because you have a really healthy relationship that is doing this, and it's not a really unhealthy one,
Right.
and I
Well,
think
and there's
a
a
lot of
lot of like, even with that kind of thing, there's a lot of talk of consent. You know, like when Raina
mhm,
pitches the idea in that one shot, Kianth is just kind of like really depressed about it, and immediately Raina backpedals because like Kianth spent so much time not being like touched or hugged by anybody that when she gets to touch and hug Raina, it's like a very special thing for her. So
mhm,
Raina was like, "Well, if you're not into this, we don't have to do it. It's not a problem at all." And there's a lot of that healthy communication that goes on before they even decide to embark on that challenge,
yeah,
which I thought was a lot of fun to explore too. So
yeah. I
all about
I think
consent,
that
all about healthy relationships, you know.
I think we need to continue that narrative. I think that's really important because
Yeah.
especially in romance, I think, um, actually, I talked about this on the podcast recently. We were talking about romance in books, and I think, like, a lot of romance is that very young kind of like, I'm 20 and I fall in love really passionately. Even if they're not 20, it's that,
Mhm.
like, hormone
Yeah,
charged, my frontal
yeah,
lobe hasn't
the spark.
solidified
Mhm.
romance, and then
Right.
there's nothing else. So I
Yeah.
think that's why I like the messier, like, looks at relationships that happen after all of the happily
Mhm.
ever after in lit fic, but I also have started really liking older romancers, like, people with, like, older characters, like, get
Yeah.
out of your 20s. I need you out of your
Yeah.
20s
Yeah.
because you
Yeah. I mean,
can't.
like, I know that there's like an entire sect of people who really want to hear like the man, you know, just like aggressively taking charge and not asking the woman what she wants. And I'm just like, that's not my jam. That's not my style. Like, you
I
know,
mean,
like
that's
I
fine in its
can be
place, but
good.
it
Like
can't
I
be
can see where, but
everyone.
it can't be everything, you know. Like, and I
Yeah,
think again, like if you're gonna have that kind of moment, I actually want to see it where even in a book where there's a communication about it beforehand, like tomorrow night, we're all bets are off, and we both agree to
yeah,
this, and here's our safe word, and like all bets are off, and we're moving on to something very sexy and fun, and then the next day it's like you're in character. Like that's completely different, but that's not
yeah,
what I'm reading in most of the romance books I pick up. So it just again,
yeah.
like if that's the thing, like I think there's a benefit to that, you know, but everybody has the tropes that they like, and that's just not one of mine. So
Alright, so speaking of tropes, so
mhm.
you taught me that I love Wump.
Yes, Wump. Wump is my
And
favorite. I love it.
can you explain Wump and, like, maybe why you like writing it or why you also like it? Because I love it. I think there's a lot of maybe this is the codependence that people were talking about, but there's, like, a lot of that between.
No, hands down, that is the codependence that people were talking about, and it again is just a trope. People really like it.
I
So
really like it.
yeah, like I have no space to talk about any kind of trope in fantasy or romance realistically. Yeah, so Wump is defined. I define it personally as physical hurt followed by comfort. So it's
Mhm.
like hurt comfort, but not emotional. There's no angst. It's not
Yeah.
angst in that regard. It's like someone gets stabbed, someone catches hypothermia, someone is thrown into a river and has to wash up on shore unconscious, and their lover has to like find them and take them back to a cabin and nurse them back to health. Like that's Wump. And I'm like, and it can come in a ton of different formats, and like it's all I've been
Mhm.
writing all my life. Like I would watch, like I remember watching like Anastasia when I was a kid, and like there's that one scene where like Dimitri gets hit in the stomach with a rock and like falls to the ground, and she's like Dimitri, and she like runs after him, and I was just like I would watch that scene over and over and over again, waiting for more, like as if the characters would just magically expand on that specifically, and then like everything's fine, and I'm like damn it, you know, but yeah, like Wump is very much like, and it if you want to get like psychological about it, it goes back to the idea that when we were children and we were, you know, in a position where we were sick or injured, we felt like we were either a burden or we didn't get cared for in the way that we wish we had, you know? So like we always wish
Oh,
that
that
we had
explains a
that
lot.
Yeah, no, like, it explains a lot, doesn't it? Like, we always wish that we had that person who would do anything for us when we're sick. They could see us at our worst and still love us, you know? And that idea of warmth, like, I think that's why I keep playing into it over and over and over because, you know, it just goes back to that childhood and how you were being taken care of. So it's just interesting. Like, not that my parents did anything wrong, you know, like they tried their best, but like I don't know, like there's clearly some things that needed to be resolved in fiction at that point. So
I'll
yeah,
just go
love
with it was a different time. It was a different
yeah,
time.
it
That's
was a
what I
different
go
time. Yeah, like my mom still made me chocolate chip cookies when I was sick, you know, but like I do think that there was a little bit of that, like, well, you know, you're feeling a little like you're overburdening your parents. Like I don't want to be a burden to
Yeah.
anybody, but then like how nice it is when you're not a burden to somebody and someone really loves you because of that, you know, and they're willing to plow you out of the snow and bring you back and you know put you by the fire like this and hand you a cup of tea, and it's like, well, that's so cozy, you know.
That's what I need.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what I needed.
you have a bunch of magical creatures. I
Mhm.
think magical creatures is a staple of cozy fantasy. It's like a staple of most fantasy, but I think cozy
Yeah,
fantasy really,
yeah,
really loves a good creature moment. We have
yeah.
dragons, we have griffins. Are there more things coming for the other
I
books?
don't even know. So Ponder in Pirate's Life for Tea is the baby griffin that follows them around in
Mhm,
the entire sequel. And everybody adores her. And in the third book, the two dragon eggs that they, you know, spoilers, they find the dragon eggs that they're looking for in book two.
mhm.
And they hatch in book three, and Ponder gets to run around with two baby dragons the entire time in book three. And the dragons are named Pillbug and Gold Coin. And they are just like the cutest, saddest things ever. And then in book four, there's like an even better moment with a new dragon that shows up, and it's just like so like Ponder is just like this like she just becomes like the older, wiser girl surrounded by all these like start taking command of all of these dragons, even though she's like this little itty bitty griffin. Like yeah, it I
Aw.
mean it's great. I had so much fun with those characters.
Excellent. Give me all the creatures. I do love
Yep.
creatures.
Yeah, you're gonna love it.
It's
And if you love dragons, you're gonna love it even more in books three and four because they play such a big role in books three and four. So
I mean, I think the whole world is dragon mad right now, so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
well timed.
You
So
know what? I've got my tattoo for dragons. I've been waiting for it. Like I've just been waiting for dragons to come back around all my life.
it's time. It's dragon time.
Yeah,
So we have 4 books planned, 4 books written.
yeah.
Pirates comes out on October 1st. Do you have
Mhm.
any rough estimate for the other 2?
I think based on the first two books, we can expect about 6 months between each release. That's
Okay.
what
So
I'm guesstimating. I don't have any official dates. I'm
yeah,
just based on what I'm seeing. If they're going to put out one in May and one in October, I would estimate sometime in spring 2025 for book three, and then probably fall 2025 for book four. So
wonderful. That's
yeah,
exciting. So we get 2025 fun too.
I cannot wait for you guys to read the next two. Like all kinds of crap happens. I literally like I took that Tamara Pierce vibe of the quartet where like every book gets better and
Mhm.
just like ran with it. Like the characters fall into their own. They have all their existing relationships. They build all these new relationships. It's just like everything you wanted to read but didn't know you wanted to read is coming in the next two books.
I
So
love it. I can't
mhm,
wait. I'm super excited.
yeah.
Um, I love where we can just keep going deep. I need Travis Baldree to do the same thing in Legends and Lattes.
Dude, I am waiting for the sequel of like, did you read the prequel?
Yeah, but there's so
And
many places you could go with that.
I know.
Think
Well,
of
another
all the
like
characters.
the epilogue of the prequel. Did
Mhm.
you? I want that times 16. Like, it's like I want the epilogue times
He has
16.
to
Need that over and over and over again.
he has to dig deep into this world because he can go so many places.
I just
There's so
want.
many fantastic characters that he can build little side worlds. He can go like Robin Hood and just build all these little worlds within the
I
world of
know,
Legends.
man. I'm waiting for it. That's literally all I did in this. Like my world building was so freaking. I didn't expect this book to blow up. My world building was so basic. If I'd known, I would have spent more time on it. So every sequel, I'm trying to add more more depth to that world because I'm just like embarrassed at how basic it is.
Oh, I promise you there are worse world building books in this world.
I'm sure that that's true, but it gets better in further books. It's just, you know.
Excellent. So you've had a lot of success with this as a self-pub novel. You've been traditionally published before. How has this experience differed from your original
Ooh,
experiences
that's
with
a
traditional
question.
publishing?
So my first book was traditionally published with a mid-level press.
Mhm.
So Jollyfish Press published my middle grade book, Cancel or Oh my
Can't
God,
spell
this is
treason without
I
T.
know, right now. They published, The Secrets of Star Whales was my middle grade book, and I actually
Mhm.
did just get the rights back for that, so I'll probably be republishing that self-published, here soon.
Excellent.
They offered me a I mean, they're a mid-level press. They offered me a very small advance. I never
Mhm.
earned out, and the reason I got my rights back is because it was technically out of print by our contract. So, like, they hadn't sold enough copies in a year to justify owning the rights anymore, and so I basically wrote them back and was like, "Hey," and they gave them to me right away.
Excellent.
So that experience was it was exciting because I could say I was traditionally published, but it
Mhm.
wasn't what I was hoping the traditional publishing experience would be. And I think that that's going to be, I think that's pretty common for a lot of authors. Like a lot of them hope for this red carpet royal treatment, and they get a book out in some Barnes and Nobles, not even all of them. Like you kind of have to like when my friends were looking for my book, I had to literally go online and type in their zip code and be like, okay, it's 50 miles away in this Barnes and Noble. And
Aw.
then like once they bought the copy, they never restocked it. And it was like, well, that kind of sucks. So
I think that's even harder now with the way that Barnes& and Noble stocks things,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. It's not gotten, and especially for middle grade, like it's not gotten easier.
Yeah.
So I think that experience was disappointing to me. It was something that I always expected would be great, but I remember getting it out there and being like, dang, this wasn't anything that I thought I was going for the last 7 years. Like I thought this would be more fun. And can confidently say Tor is more fun. Like I'm having the time of my freaking life with Tor
I
over here.
believe it.
I hope they never let me go. I hope that I can stay there forever. I've got like such an amazing team. The editors are passionate. I've got a publicist now, which is wild. Like they
Yeah.
coordinated this interview. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. So, and I'm getting like, people reaching out to me asking for art copies, and they're sending physical copies all over the world. And it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything that you imagine when you think of a traditional publishing experience. That's what I'm getting right now. And I'm so
Yay.
beyond grateful for it.
Well, I personally just absolutely love Tor. I've worked with them, like, on this side of things for a really long time, and I've always found them to be, like, super accommodating, super pleasant. They, like, genuinely want people to,
To
like
succeed.
they wanna
Yeah.
share that love of reading, and they wanna get it out there,
Yeah.
and
And
I've
their back
always loved
is
Tor.
like I feel like I'm sitting among giants right now. Like the
Oh, their
books that
back
they
is
published, I'm just like, I
Mhm.
cannot so like anytime everyone's like, "Oh, you got published," I'm like, "Yeah, Brandon Sanderson's publisher." Like, "Oh, publisher." And they're just like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yep, that's
Mhm.
me. That's my publisher now." It's crazy.
You're in
So
good company.
really, really good company. Yeah, very
Uh,
lucky.
that's exciting. I was just so happy when you posted that announcement. I was, like, squealing on my end. I was so happy for you. So,
Aw, thanks.
excellent.
Yeah, it was definitely hard to keep that one a secret for months and months and months.
Oh, I wouldn't have been able to. I'm not good at secrets. Um, let's talk a little bit about, like, your social media, your TikTok, because I feel
Yeah.
like that is such a huge part of you as, I guess, as an author brand. How
Mhm.
did you become, like, this self-pub professor of TikTok? Like, have you
Um,
always wanted to teach? Did
I've
TikTok
always
make you
wanted
do it?
to
Like,
teach.
how did we get here?
Yeah, so I've been in traditional publishing for 8 years. I'd had an agent for four of them, and it was one of those things where, like, when I was with the agent and we were subbing to books, like a presence online was required, but there were very
Mhm,
specific things that you couldn't say. And so, like, none of us were allowed. Like, I was not allowed to talk about the industry at large. Like, I had multiple
mhm,
discussions with my agent where she was like, "Don't talk about this. You can't mention this. Don't say this." And it was like when I left her, I was just like, I can say anything I want because I'm self-publishing
mhm.
and no one can tell me no. And that was so freeing for me that I hit the ground running with that platform. Like I was just like, I want to talk about everything. I want to talk about everything. Like I want to go in and just see what I can say and see if people are interested and talk about all of it, all of the stuff that I've learned, all of the stuff that I want to know, all of the things that I wish I could have heard when I was new. And so I
Yeah.
kind of did, and people really, really vibed with that. Like they loved that there was somebody talking about that kind of stuff. And in the meantime, I was earning my MFA. Like I said, I've been in the
Mhm.
industry for years. I figured out that you can just ask people to do interviews and they will.
Mhm.
So like I started interviewing all these like big industry professionals just to like learn more. And the stuff
Yeah.
that I was great. And now I know that I can reach out to anybody at any time and most of them will take my call. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. So
It's cool.
yeah, it's neat. So yeah, so I think that, when you're looking at social media, like if anybody's looking and they're trying to build a platform like that, I always recommend finding something that you're actually genuinely passionate about. Like self-publishing, traditional publishing, those are truly my areas of passion. So when someone talks to me about it, I don't want to stop talking about it. And that it makes it easy to get online and talk about those things consistently because I'm like, those are what I'm interested in. Like, yeah, like talk to me about my passions. Let's go, you know? So figure out what your passion is and then try to figure out how it can benefit the audience that's watching it. You know, like everybody has a book idea. Everybody is curious about the publication paths. Everybody wants to know how I got a six-figure deal. The answer is luck. Just like get and then pray. You know, like there's no way to mimic that success, but you
Yeah.
can get yourself out in the field and you know, like I think Travis Baldree is the one who actually put up the idea of the lightning rods. Like you can get out in the field and you might have a really big field and it may take you a lot of lightning rods and you have to plant them all over the place. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of energy. And you never know
Mhm.
how fast one of them will get struck. You know, so like you may have this huge field and 100 lightning rods and nothing. And then you may look over the hill and there might be one person who put one lightning rod down and they get
Yeah.
struck with $100,000 deal. And it's just like, well, shit, you know, but that's just
Yeah.
like, you know, so I think that, you know, the more, but like the big thing is that you can't leave the field because if you want to get struck by
Mhm.
lightning, you have to be out there in the field planting those lightning rods. The minute you step back and go sit in your car, it's over, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that that's just kind of the recommendation I give. Like find a social media that you don't hate, post about things that you're interested in because that'll keep you engaged there. And people like to
Mhm.
listen to people with passions. So talk about
Yeah.
your passion.
And you provide a lot of value, which I think is really important. Because I don't think that a lot of people talk about the process a lot.
Yeah.
The only other person that like I see all the time that talks about their process, and it's very personal to them, is Katie Wismer, who's another indie author, and she
Yeah.
does like this whole like vampire thing, and she's been
Mhm.
talking about it for a really long time, and she has a tremendous amount of transparency around like her numbers, which you do as well, which I think
Mhm.
is really important to give people a realistic idea of what they're kind of getting into and
Right.
what to
Right.
expect and where maybe not to do certain things,
Mhm.
maybe where to put other, you know, so
Right. Well,
I
and
think it's
the sales numbers, I mean, that was honestly why I started doing that in the beginning is because like obviously with my traditional publisher, I couldn't share sales numbers.
yeah.
But then when I got to self-publishing, it was like, well, this actually would be very helpful for me. Like what is like if this did like I even thought this on the release day. I'm like, if this book takes off, I want these videos to be available for people 2 years, 3 years, 5 years later to look at the sales numbers that I had and know when publishers started getting interest. So if you're really truly invested, you can go back into my sales updates and see what numbers
Mhm.
I had before the publisher started knocking in after, you know,
Yeah.
and how that whole process and that's not a guarantee that if you hit those numbers, they'll come knocking on your door too. There's no guarantee. It's a luck-based industry. But I
Yeah.
do think that those numbers give some people a baseline to shoot for, which is helpful for some people like me, you know. So yeah, I think that you know the transparency, the ability to talk about anything that people want to talk about. You know, like my agent even cleared it with Tor when she signed with me. She was just like, "This author has a TikTok platform, and you're going to have to accept the fact
Mhm.
that like she has a TikTok platform, and she'll talk
Yeah.
about. So if there's something you don't want her to talk about, tell us now." You know, and they did. They came up with a little list of things. They're like, "Don't talk about this stuff, but you can talk about this stuff, and that's okay." And I'm like, "Cool." And so far we haven't had a problem, so that's good.
Excellent. I feel like Tor is pretty cool chill. They're pretty
Sure,
cool.
yeah, no, they're super chill. Like there's been talk, and I don't know if this is still even going to happen, but there was talk when I first signed that they were going to connect me with their TikTok person so that we could do like Q&As, and I would
Oh,
love
that
for
would be
that to
cool.
happen. So if anybody from
That would
Tor
be
is listening,
cool.
email me because I would still love to do interviews with someone who's working in Tor because I think that there's so many things to learn. You know?
Tor, do it. Do it, Tor.
Yeah, do it.
So a while back you ran a couple internet like based online writing courses. Do you plan on doing more of those?
God, you've been following me forever. That was way back in 2022. Yes, actually, I earned my MFA, and I did that because not because I think you need an MFA to write. If you're listening, you don't spend the money if you
Mhm.
don't have the cash for it. I paid cash, and I was very fortunate to be able to do that after I had all my savings. I got my MFA because I wanted to teach as a professor in a college classroom, and that is still my
Mhm.
goal long term. So I am working on building up my own base, and then I've actually reached back out to Emerson, and they are going to discuss the pot. They're working on it of connecting me with a non-credit course that I would be able to teach fully online to students who are not in Emerson. So like you don't have
Oh,
to be
cool.
enrolled in college to do that kind of class. They would just be hosting it on their platform through Emerson, but it would be like an independent teacher, me,
Mhm.
with no kind of credit just to get the you know the experience and the information. So I'm hoping if we can get that off the ground, it would be running in fall 2024, which I think would be really cool to be able to work under Emerson, but not like as an employee, because
Yeah,
like I've got a lot of other things going on. I don't really have time to be a full time
you're a
teacher right
little busy.
now. But at the same time, like if I could teach that kind of thing on the side, just offer those courses, I think that they would be pretty successful just because of this platform. So, but Emerson also has a thing where they're like, we don't really like our professors to have TikTok platforms, and I'm like, sorry, like it's already here. That's where most of my students would come from. So they're kind of like
Yeah,
trying to figure out where they can make exceptions for that. So we'll
get with
see.
the times, Emerson. It's
They're
different.
they are honestly they're a very progressive, first foot forward. They're the ones that had the first fully online MFA in popular fiction that I found. Like
Uh,
there's no other platform, like there's no other degree like the one that I got because I was aiming
mhm,
for something commercial focused instead of literary focused.
yeah.
And I mean, they did great. It was a really, really good program. But yeah, I'm really hoping we can get this class off the ground because I think that'd be really cool.
I think it'd be awesome. I hope that they sort out whatever they have to sort out so you can do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I'll keep you guys updated. I'm sure because once I know
Please.
more, like it's going to come down to the people who are watching me and whether or not they want to enroll in that. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So how has your writing changed or writing process changed, or maybe it hasn't, since you started self-pubbing?
I got very good at putting out books very quickly, which, like, if you saw my students
You
today, may not be a good idea.
you
Yeah,
write a lot.
I write a lot. I wrote 5 books last year, and I self-published 3 of them, and then the other 2 were for tour for this year. So it
Mhm,
was quite a lot of writing. It was quite a lot of editing, a lot of marketing. But yeah, my writing process, I would say, it really hasn't changed. If anybody has been following me, I wrote a craft book called The 5 Sentence Method, and that book basically goes over this plotting method that is not uncommon. Like a lot of people use it without knowing it, but I
mhm,
was the first one to kind of detail it in a book, as far as I'm aware. So this 5 sentence method basically is where you look at the overall plot structure of a book based on the psychology of what your readers expect, and you hit certain plot points at certain times depending on what they're looking for at that moment in the book. So like the first one would be like the inciting incident, then you'd have the
mhm,
leaving home moment, then you'd have the midpoint reversal where everything changes at the halfway point, and then you have the beginning of the end, which is the start of Act Three, and then the conclusion, which is the very end of the book. And by plotting out those 5 sentences, I have a lot of freedom to do pretty much anything I want in between all
in
of those
between.
options. Yeah, but it keeps me on track pacing wise for the actual plot point and how it's going to progress. So I'll tie word count goals to each of those sentences and say, okay, I want my book is going to be 80,000 words, which means that my midpoint reversal needs to happen at 40,000 words. And if it
Mhm,
happens at 20,000 words, I've got a problem because my beginning is too short. And if it happens at
mhm,
60,000 words, I've got a problem because my beginning is too long and my book is going to
yeah,
be too long as a result. So it helps me stay on track in that regard. And with that structure, I'm able to really just plow through novels. Like I just sit down and it's pretty much just like, okay, 5,000 words today, let's knock it out. Okay, 10,000 words today, let's knock it out,
it's
and
the numbers you pull is insane to me.
yeah, I will say, like, obviously they're not sustainable. If anybody looked at my
No.
platform, I mean, at the time of recording this, like I realized this week that I'm pretty, and I've got some things going on in real life that hopefully will be
Yeah,
resolved when this is posted. But I am definitely burnt out a little bit from what happened last year.
mhm,
Like I did a lot last year, and this year it's kind of like, well, now you can just sit back and enjoy it. But my brain is still like, no, I need to contribute. I need to do more things. So having that kind of disconnect between what I want to accomplish and what I'm actually accomplishing has kind of created a bit of a discontent within my soul.
yeah,
So if you're listening, yes, they're astronomical words. I do not recommend everybody take that pace. I think that's kind of self-sabotaging in the long run. But
yeah.
for the first year, if you're really ready to buckle down and get it done, buckle down and get it done. I mean, all you need is the passion and the knowledge to do a project. So
I do feel like a lot of self-pub authors have to publish at this clip that traditionally pubbed authors don't necessarily have to push
yeah, that
themselves
rapid
to.
release schedule is honestly quite intense. And I think it
Mhm,
started with romance books, which are very formulaic, like they're
mhm.
not saying that all romance books are the same because they're not, but they all follow the same plot
It's a very
structure.
strict plot structure,
Yeah,
yeah.
like if you back out, there's a book called Romancing the Beat by
Mhm.
Gwen. forget what it last
Something
name
or
was.
other. Yeah, I have it somewhere around here.
But it's called Romancing the Beat. It's a great book. And it basically is like, here are the plot points that you need to hit at a romance book, and here's what needs to be accomplished in those moments. And like, no one deviates from that. Like, you can't
Yeah.
deviate from that because when people are reading it, they're reading with the expectation that all of these things will be hit. So if you try to get creative, they're not going to like your book, period, full stop, you know?
Once
So
you get creative, you're no longer in romance, you're in
you're no
something else
longer a
with
romance
romance.
writer. You're doing something
Yeah.
else, you know? So so that genre I think was very feasible for rapid release because if you can get yourself to a high contributing word count, you could theoretically write many, many romance books a year because it's the same book over and over and
Yeah.
over again with slightly different flavors. With fantasy, you do still have similar plot structure, like the hero's journey doesn't really change, but there's a lot more facets and world building involved in it that you don't really need in romance. So
Romance. No.
yeah, so I think that, it depends on the genre and it depends on the author, like some people are really, really suited for writing 3,000 words a day and some people just aren't, and that's
I mean,
okay.
I have several half-written books that have never been finished 'cause I
Yeah,
get so distracted.
that's usually because I had that period for a long time too. Like I had a lot of half finished books, and in my opinion, when you have half finished books, it's almost always because plot structure is eluding you in the ending. Like the
Yeah.
beginning is so exciting and fresh and new, but like the ending, you haven't figured out how to like make it exciting enough that you want to finish it yet. And then
Mhm.
you're kind of like, well, it's not going to be as good as this idea in my head, and then you go after the new
So it's
idea.
just sitting there. Yeah.
Problem at
I
the
have a
same
book I have a book sitting and it's like final like battle before the end, and it's like,
time.
forget it. I don't know. I don't like
Forget
it.
it. I
It's
don't
like,
need
I
it.
hate it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
forget you. You're
Yeah,
going over here in a corner.
I hit that point when I was probably 22, 23, and I realized that if I never finished those books, I would never get to be published, and that was always something that I wanted to do. So it was like, well, if finishing the book is the barrier here, then I guess I need to sit down and finish the book so that I can actually send it off places and let it be known. But it took a lot of mental energy to get over that hump, like that. The shiny new ideas, they're always going to be there.
They're
You
always
know,
there. And then
where
how
are they?
this is actually not scripted in my little
Uh huh.
pile of questions here. So I think we have similar jobs in the sense that like we don't have a
Set
schedule.
schedule. Hmm. For
We
sure.
are all over the place.
Yeah.
How do you carve out time to write? Because my hardest thing is so like obviously I read a lot. I'm a huge avid reader. It's my favorite thing to
Mhm.
do. That obviously I would need to claw time away from that. I do understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just making a any sort of routine is so difficult for me at
Mhm.
least because it's forever shifting. I
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
How do you do it? How do you carve out time and any sort of
Well, and
consistency?
it's and I'll tell you now, if you ever decide to become a flight attendant, they would hire you on the frickin' spot because they love nurses.
Absolutely not, because I hate flying. I would have to
Okay,
take
well, that's
so
fair
much
then.
Valium. I would take
They
so much Valium.
we have a ton of nurses and doctors, and, like, I had, like, a girl who was, like, a she, like, was literally a brain surgeon for, like, 3 or 4 years and then was like, "This is way too intense." And she became a flight attendant, and I was like, "Oh my god." She was insane. She was so interesting, but,
There's too
yeah,
much
we got another
anti
one I worked with that
yeah.
was on the genome project, like, the Human Genome Project, and she, like, did that as her first career and then, like, left, and now she's a flight attendant. She was, like, a scientist on the gene anyway. Um,
How much
yeah,
Valium can I take and still work? That's what I wanna
I
know.
mean, it's you can't take any of it if you're gonna be flying. Easy profession, just like your current job. But yeah, I mean, it's honestly. So I think that our job is slightly different, just in that way, because when you're on a plane, it's not like quite like being in a hospital. Like when you're on a
Mhm,
plane, you serve your passengers, you serve them again, you go through a trash, and you serve them one more time, right? And then
mhm,
they get to a point where they don't want to see you. Like
mhm.
like how annoying is it when your flight attendant every 3 minutes is like, "Can I get you anything else? Can I?" You're like, "No, I want to watch my movie." Like, so
Yeah,
when my passengers get to that point, like I serve them up to that point. When they get to that point, I'm kind of left with hours to do nothing at all. Like I'm trapped on a
yeah,
plane. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no like sometimes there's texting, but it depends on the Wi-Fi, on like like the plane and how good of the Wi-Fi connection it is. Sometimes it sucks. So
mhm,
like I can't talk to anybody. I can't look up anything. I can't procrastinate. So it's either I'm reading or I'm writing. So
mhm,
depending on the crew will depend on whether or not I pick up a book or if I pick up my laptop to write. And then I have these overnights where I'm sitting in a hotel room with no people nearby, nothing else to do. I go get food and I come back upstairs, and what am I going to do in my hotel room but watch TV, read a book, or write? So I just
mhm,
started getting in the habit of writing in those times. So I'll have these 20-hour overnights in these kind of podunk towns, and I won't really have anything to do. So that's what I do. So I actually wrote a lot of books on the job. And then when I
Mhm.
started working from home more because I started making more money off my writing this last
Mhm.
year, I like I don't fly that much anymore. I fly maybe 6 days a month, 3 days a month, you know. And
Yeah.
I actually have noticed that my writing productivity has kind of taken a nosedive because now I have the temptation of social media, of interviews, of research, of Discord. Like I'm on all of these platforms trying to keep myself relevant, and then I don't actually do the thing that they're interested in from me instead.
Gotta make the thing.
Yeah, so like I think that my setup was actually better when I was flying, which is why I still try to go, to go back and fly every couple, weeks because I'm just like I need
Mhm.
to get that concentrated time that I know is built into my schedule to get that done.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends on the job and probably the situation you're in. Like if you have a couple moments at the nursing station where you can just whip out a laptop and write a couple sentences, that's probably what I would do,
Yeah.
but or I'd be working the night shift purposely because it's quieter, hopefully.
It is quite I actually don't mind the night shift,
Yeah.
but you'd be so I'm an ICU nurse, so it's very very hit or miss with any
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
quiet.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, but maybe I do need to get over my fear of flying just to
They
have
would hire
quiet
you in a
time.
second because a lot of people are stupid and have heart attacks on planes and
Yeah,
strokes and blood sugar stuff. And I mean, like flying with a nurse is honestly one of my favorite things in the world because they're just ready when something happens. It's great.
see, but when I fly, you don't want me to be your nurse because when I fly, I am not a nurse. I I I have had a drink, and
I had a break, but I'm the
I'm
one
no
that's not.
longer
Yeah,
I am
you're
no
the ones
longer
that
a
flight
nurse.
attendants don't actually love because usually those people are doing that on the ground, and then like when we're about to take off, which is like the time that you should be alert and aware and watching the safety demo, most of these
Mhm.
people are just like conked out because they don't want to be around for it, and we're just like, please wait until we at least hit 10,000 feet before you take your Valium. Like if we need to evacuate the plane, we want you conscious, not have to drag out your body.
To in my defense, my anxiety on a plane is so bad that the Valium doesn't zonk me out.
Yeah,
It just makes
100%.
me
Well,
pleasant.
and it's like it's sad. Like I understand completely because I deal with nervous flyers all day long, and like as someone who loves flying with all of my heart and
Mhm.
soul, I'm like genuinely sad for people who have that kind of anxiety because like flying is the coolest thing on the planet, and it's incredibly safe. Like it's incredible. Like I know the news makes you think it's not. It's incredibly safe.
I know
So
it's safe, but I don't know if I would say it's the coolest thing on the planet.
I just like I don't know, man.
It's
Like I
very
like
useful.
you get to
It is a
fly. You get to
useful tool.
fly. Like you're flying. Like you look at the window and the ground just lifts away, and it's like, wow, where are we going next? Like the adventure is there. Oh no.
I like travel, I don't like flying, so it's like a necessary evil to get to the places I wanna go to.
I mean,
So,
that's fair. Yeah, that's
I
fair.
deal with it. I can
Yeah,
deal with a lot of
I think
discomfort.
Thor is excited that I know how to travel in an airport. Because
Oh,
they're
excellent.
talking about doing some kind of tour with me in May, and I'm just like, and I think they're excited that I know how to like conduct myself on an airplane in an airport, showing up for flights, like all that travel stuff. Like I'm ready for. I'm probably one of the best
I'm
equipped officers to do it. So
very curious about the backstory of what has happened that they need to be so excited that you know how to conduct themselves yourself in an airport.
yeah.
That is not for here. I want to circle back to the burnout for a second because I know you said that it's Gilded Abyss, the book, second book, this Crimson Ruin, right?
This
Is you're
crimson.
putting that on hold for a bit. It's darker. I get it. You don't want to be in that headspace.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. How do you have advice for burnout since now you've realized you're in it? I mean, I've been there. I think a lot of us have been there. Do you have any
Yeah, I
advice?
am. I'm still working through it. It's a very like I'm one of those people that likes to deny that there's problems until it's like
Oh yeah.
smacking me in the like I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like I'm fine. And they're like, well, how come you haven't written in 2 months? I'm like, because I didn't want to, duh. Like, easy for me to just like, no, it's not a problem. I'm fine. I can stop anytime I want. And so yeah, so I think I'm still kind of working through like what realistically to do with that. And I do think because I'm definitely the hyperactive ADHD, it's not going to take me long to get over this.
Yeah.
I'm at a point where like there's external things happening that it's like, oh, I don't really want to be bothering with it at this point. So I think for burnout for me, like I've learned this week that burnout is the disconnect between the effort you're putting in and what your results end up being. So what you're expecting this effort will correlate to and what it actually correlates to, like that difference of opinion is kind of where that burnout period happens.
Mhm.
So I think that for me, it was kind of like I know that there's a ton of people who are waiting for this Gilded Abyss too. I know that. I know that book will be hot cakes. People will be grabbing it all up the wazoo once it comes out. But right now, it's like like I started my self publishing career selling 50 books a day, and now I'm lucky to move to, 8 to 10 copies of Gilded Abyss a day, and like that
Yeah.
drop in sales, like on a bad day I'll sell 2 copies, and it's just like I know that these books are still selling. Like the fact that they're still selling 6 months later with virtually no marketing on my half tells me how good
Mhm.
of a book it is and how many people want to
It
read
is
it.
really good. If you want
Yeah,
a
like
darker book, people, it's good.
if you're interested in something very dark and gritty and not cozy, it's the book for you. But
Mhm.
it's one of those things like I know that this book is doing well logically, but then there's that part of me that's like, what if the sequel isn't as good as the first one? What if nobody buys it? What if I did all this work and all this time and it doesn't end up meaning anything and all this stuff? Like I have the cover done. I'm ready to publish it. I just don't have a physical book because I can't
You
sit
don't
down
have to
long enough
stick
to
in the
write it.
cup.
So yeah, like, oh, the cover's good. It's gonna be good. I know it's gonna be a good book when I'm done with it, but I think there's still something kind of off about the plot, and that's I think what I want to mull over for a couple more months because I had this idea of what I wanted this book to be when I wrote the first one, and the longer I think about it, the more I'm like, I don't love this plot idea. Like,
Mhm.
I need to work through some plot structure things before I can sit down with excitement and write this book. And then there's all this stuff in my real life that's just like, so
Yeah.
I'm going to do something kind of lighthearted and fun. And I think that's probably the best advice that I could give for burnout at this point. Like I might have more insight in a couple of months, but for now it's a little less like take off the pressure, like I
Yeah.
emailed my narrator and told her that I wasn't going to have a book for her this summer. And that helped immensely because now I'm already starting to think about ideas. Now that I've given
Mhm.
myself permission to not write the book, my brain is like, well, what if we were going to though? And I'm like, no, you don't think now. Like, you don't think that now. So I think that it's a lot of kind of getting yourself out of an expectation phase and into a creative phase. Like, how are you
Yeah.
going to backtrack from what you think should be happening into what you actually want to happen? And that's where
Yeah.
I'm going to be kind of exploring my time right now. So
Well, someone will buy the book because I will buy the book, so you'll have one. You have
you're
one
not.
already.
I know there's a crazy. It's almost like it's not a cult at this point. Like no one. Like I feel like the world at large only knows me for my cozies, but then there's like this crazy subsect of people who are like obsessed with Gilded Abyss, and I'm just like,
Because that
I'm very
book was
grateful.
a roller coaster. I
Yeah,
emailed you in the middle of reading it to yell at you for hurting me, and I
yeah.
loved it.
Yeah, that book was honestly, that was my MFA thesis actually. So
Really?
yeah, yeah, like I had like a reader at the college, and she was getting pages every month, and I mean, like they loved it. Like they had nothing to say. There were no notes on my thesis. They just handed it back to me and were like, "You're good. Have fun publishing it." So
It's the and honestly, the timing with the Ocean Gate thing was, like, perfect.
that was wild, and that was
That was
that was
wild to me.
That was wild. Yeah, like I mean, like that was yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, I published this Gilded Abyss, which is about 2 women who are trapped in a submarine during basically what becomes a zombie apocalypse, right? Like they're trapped in this like Titanic like free submarine, and then like people start going crazy and they're like trapped under the ocean.
Mhm.
And then literally like 6 days later or 9 days
Ocean Gate,
later, it was some
something like that.
absurdly
It's
short
really
amount of time.
close.
Yeah, that the ocean gate happened and all those billionaires were trapped in that submarine and then died going to see the Titanic. Like it was just like it was literally like what? And I will say like I was able to get a real boost in sales off of that. Like I think that that helped my initial word of mouth marketing more than anything else because I got so many page reads off of Kindle Unlimited for that. Like people
Yeah.
went to that book and downloaded it whether or not they'd heard of me at all because they were like, "Wait, you published this book literally 6 days before this
Like a
happened?"
week
Like
before these people
yeah,
thought that it
it was literally wild. And then I had this secondary thing with The Day Death Stopped, where the first line of The Day Death Stopped actually was the first line of the new Avatar trailer when they first released it back in November. And I based that book off of Avatar The Last Airbender, which was really weird. So, like, that was
stop
kind of
stop manifesting things in the
it
simulation,
was a little
okay?
like that one was a little eerie to me because I wrote that book like, oh well, I would love to do like witches on current Earth, but like one of them is an avatar, and like what happens when two avatars are born? Like that was the premise of that book was like what happens if two avatars are born at the same time, and like the power is push pulling between them. Like how does that work?
Mhm.
And then like the first line of the book is time is a funny thing, and then like the trailer came out for the new live action Avatar, and it's like time is a funny thing, and I'm like, oh my god.
What have you done now?
So weird. So anyway, yeah, I'll keep an eye on some of those in the future and see if I'm on the right track. But I'm
Be
assuming that that means
careful.
I'm
Be,
progressing in the right
be
way.
yeah, be
Maybe
careful what you put out there.
I was gonna say, or I'm the soothsayer of the modern age, and I'm about to predict
Taking down
the end of the
billionaires one book at a time.
world. Yeah, right. Oh
I have sort of a little gossipy question,
man. Okay.
that I guess kind of fits in here, but,
Mhm.
you've probably seen Senli Yu and Manacled getting picked up. Do you feel
Yes.
like this is going to be more of a trend? I know that this isn't the first fanfic to be brought into traditional publishing, but it feels like the publishers are going more into social media, into other areas to pull out books with followings. Should we expect to see more like fanfic coming
You
as well,
know,
not just pub?
that's a really good question, and it kind of gets into a little bit of the legalities of what fan fiction is. Like, archive of
Yeah.
our own can only exist because people are not making money off of it.
Yeah.
With that said, copyright is a very vague law that says like anything that has any kind of human input is basically yours as long as it's not
Mhm.
directly copied from something else. So like we all know, if anybody has been paying attention since 2008, Cassandra Clare took that book, The City of Bones, that she wrote that got so popular and had a TV show and
Mhm.
everything. Like that book was from a fan fiction,
Fanfic.
and like
Mhm.
yeah, and then she pulled a bunch of stuff from it later on that were from this other series. Like she created like those shadow world from this like other
Mhm.
series that had all of these same like the parallels are insane. Like you can tell that she read this book and then basically just siphoned through and incorporated a bunch of those ideas into her
Yeah.
own fiction. And that author, I think that whole settlement happened out of court. Like I don't know what kind of agreement they reached, but like there was a court case about it, like
Yeah.
and then there's a lot of other authors that are not so kind to fan fiction because they don't want people taking basically their stories, their characters, their ideas and then profiting off of them, which
Yeah.
is fair to a
Mhm.
point. Because in my mind it's like there are no original ideas. Your characters came from somewhere, your ideas came from somewhere, but there
Mhm.
are some very obvious comparisons that have been made between some of the books that have been published and some of the original content that it was published from. And that I can see getting very annoying for some authors,
Yeah.
especially when the new book gets bigger than the
Then yeah.
original. That would really kind of suck to have somebody. I mean, that
Yeah.
would suck to have somebody take your ideas and make them better in
And
a
that's an
commercially.
ego hit, if nothing else.
Yeah,
It's a big ego hit.
yeah, right, exactly. So as far as traditional publishing, I think that we got to remember that publishing is a business, and traditional publishing especially is a business, and no other business in the world will offer $100,000 on a product that's never been tested.
Yeah.
Imagine that in any other industry. Like imagine that on Shark Tank. If someone walked in and said, "I want you to give me $100,000 for my product to get it in every store possible," and they'll be like, "Well, what are your sales numbers?" Because that's the first thing they always ask. What are your sales
Yeah.
numbers? And they're like, "Oh, I don't have any. It's new." Like
It's
imagine what the shark
theoretical.
say. Like what imagine what the sharks would say. So
Yeah.
this industry is honestly very weird in that way. And I think that publishers are starting to realize that they don't have to take this insane risk on these new books that are just showing up because this editor says they're great. They can look
Mhm.
at what people really want, what people are following for, and grab those and pay them
Yeah.
proportionally for what they're selling, and build the hype off of an existing audience. So I know that like my book right now, I mean, like I tried to market The Secrets of Star Whales, my first traditional book. Like I
Mhm.
spent so much time and energy trying to market that on Twitter and it went nowhere. No one knew who I was. No one cared about this
Yeah.
book because there wasn't hype around it and my publisher was small,
Yeah.
But this book, because I already had a really, really rabid following for the people reading this book is already starting to get everywhere and we're still 3 months out from publication. Like I'm seeing
Yeah.
this book everywhere when I log online now, like it's so easy right now because I already had this following built up. And that was only because I was just experimenting with that. So
Mhm.
I do think that we're probably going to see whether or not they go for fan fiction, I think will be another question because that may open up some legality questions if they can't alter the original content to be new and fresh. Manacled was a very special. I mean, like
That was Manacle
if
is
you look up that
huge.
fan fiction, like that fan fiction is, I think, one of the biggest on AO3. Like that, so
That
it makes sense to me that
destroyed
they would
me.
take that risk with that.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense to me that if they're going to take that risk with anybody, they take it with that fanfic because, of
Mhm.
course, if there's even a chance that they can make it similar but different and then pull off of the fact that it was manacled originally, they will
Mhm.
probably. a
They'll at
stupid.
least sell units, whether
I
they'll
mean,
do well or
they're gonna
not is the
sell.
next
I mean,
question.
that's gonna be like the, the 50 Shades of Grey all over again when that book comes out. Like it
Yeah.
literally is going to be massive. So like I mean, like there's like there's several fanfics that I would love to see turn into traditionally published books. There's a lot of authors on there that are incredibly talented authors, but they
Yeah.
don't know how to publish. They don't know how to write original fiction. And that is its own skill set, as writing original. Like I do both. I've written fan fiction and original, and it's a very different skill set to write original fiction. But there's a lot of authors that I follow that could do it very easily, and they would sell probably more books than a lot of the authors that I talk to on, TikTok and Instagram, and it's just
Yeah.
how it is. So, I mean, it makes
Yeah.
sense to me that a publishing company would go for something that is proven.
Yeah. So I think that this whole TikTok, it's interesting. So when I even read a book recently about the algorithm and how it's like flat error culture and stuff, and even when they get to the book stuff, they talk
Mhm.
about TikTok, they talk about Bookstagram. They never talk about BookTube, which I find very interesting. It seems to be
Yeah.
outside of this bubble of everything else. But in general, I feel like as social media has grown around the bookish space, and then you got to TikTok, which I think is like the juggernaut, like the ultimate culmination of all of the little other social medias around books. Um, how it's really changed publishing and how it's almost made it easier to get a return on your investment as a
Mhm.
publishing house if
Yeah.
you play the game smarter, and you don't work against it, which is kind of nice
Right.
and also kind of evil at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
It's very
I mean, it
murky.
opens up so many problems in the fact that algorithms are inherently, like they're not colorblind. Like they have
No.
people of color have a much harder time getting their videos pushed than white people. And there's straight romances have a much easier time getting pushed by the algorithm than queer stuff. Like there's just a
Oh,
lot of things like that that make it unfortunate. But those
mhm.
gates still exist outside. That's why there's such a huge push for marginalized fiction in general, because those gatekeeping abilities happen regardless of whether or not TikTok gets involved. Like if you're
Yeah.
looking at an editor, they're still going to be like, oh, well, this black book wouldn't sell as well as this white book would. And it's like, well, shit, put that in front of us and let us decide that.
Yeah.
So I think that TikTok became this avenue for indie authors to realize that they could take back the control of themselves, because it's fun to be on TikTok and it's fun to watch the
Mhm.
views. And the algorithm is basically what, like you talked about BookTube, in my opinion, the reason that BookTube is not really included is because BookTube's heyday truly, in my opinion, was in 2011, 2012,
Yeah.
2013. And now we're at this period where there's still a very solid following of people who started BookTube back then and still really enjoy it. But most of the younger audiences are coming onto Instagram and
TikTok.
TikTok. So
It's
I
interesting.
think
I've
that
seen a lot of people cross from TikTok over to BookTube in like the last 2 years or so, and they come over
well,
with these massive followings because they want to go for longer form content. And I
yeah,
think you
well,
get
and
paid
so
out better over here.
I will tell you that the algorithm, just in the time that I've been on TikTok, because I started in January 2022 and now it's 2024 and I've got, 40,000 followers or something. And that's not even that much on TikTok. But
Mhm.
that algorithm that I was playing with initially is not what it is now. Like they introduced
Oh
TikTok
yeah.
Shop last year, and that radically changed the way that new content could come into play because of whether or not you're pushing a product. Like TikTok Shop makes money for TikTok. So if there's going to be a video that isn't pushing a TikTok product and there is a video that is pushing a TikTok product, the algorithm is naturally going to favor the TikTok Shop video overall. So there
Mhm.
was several months where we were just getting inundated with products. Like every time I
Oh, I
scroll
hated it. I
on
still
TikTok
hate
Shop,
it.
it was like, yeah, like, and it's still a problem right now. And then they're basically like, initially they said, oh, we want to be the primary search feature. So like if you have a question, you can type, we're going to be the new Google. And if you have a question, you can
Yeah.
find a video on that topic, right? And then they started expanding. Now we're rewarding long form content. Now we're
Mhm.
rewarding instructional videos, videos that take 10 minutes. We're rewarding those. But their platform doesn't really play into that very well, because like even when I record a 7-minute video, if you watch how that app processes that video, it's so slow and
Mhm.
so tedious. It has
Mhm.
such a hard time. Like the captions get off sync. Like I'll wait. I
Yeah.
have to wait for it to show up just so that I can go in and edit a certain clip of the video. Like I have to, like it's like their app can't even handle what they're trying to get us to accomplish. So I
Yeah.
do think that there's probably a bigger push for moving to BookTube in that way, because people are interested in that content, but TikTok just is like they were doing one thing really well and now they're trying to do all
Mhm.
the things and they're not doing them all very well. So
Yeah.
I moved on Instagram simultaneously last year. And I feel like I get more genuine engagement on Instagram. And I think I get more book sales on Instagram these days, and I only have 8,000
Yeah.
followers on Instagram, and I still feel like I'm getting more engagement and more, maybe not views, but like more
Yeah, the
engagement on
views
content.
Bookstagram has
So
become like a very strange place
it's
over the
very
last
odd.
few years.
Yeah, it's very
It's
odd.
very I just lose followers every day, which I don't understand, but it's cool, whatever, it's fine. I don't
Yeah,
really devote a lot of time to it like I used to. I
yeah,
really focused in over here, but like
mhm,
because I just like making videos,
yeah.
but and I can't make reels. Like I'm not gonna dance. It's not happening. So
I understand that.
but yeah, no, I do think that it's created a very interesting space, whereas before, like especially pre-internet, you had just people and they were kind of like the tastemakers. They were the people that found the things and everything was very in the hands of very certain people and a small collective. And now you can have all this public input and strange things can get pushed to the top. And I mean strange like you wouldn't have maybe put your money on that, not
Right,
necessarily because it
right.
itself is
Mhm.
strange. You
Yeah,
you know, and like when these backlist books come all the way up to the top and everybody's like super excited about something that came out,
years ago.
8
Yeah.
years ago. Yeah. It's
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, and I do think that, well, and I think we're entering a very interesting age with social media. I have a feeling that in 10 years social media is going to be completely dead. Like I don't think it's going to be
Mhm,
around in any capacity that it currently is with the inventive AI, because
mhm.
all we want is authenticity. All we want are real people talking about real things. And when AI comes in and can make an entire video, like have you seen those Sora videos?
Mhm.
Yeah, and
It's
like they're
crazy.
only get better from here. So it's like
Yeah.
when you have a video that, so like you can say, make a video of me talking about publishing, and then generate it, and you don't have to show your face. It makes up a persona for you.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fake content consistently. So I have a feeling that we're entering, like, like I think I said, golden age of YouTube, golden age of TikTok.
Mhm.
I think we're out of the golden age of social media at this point. Like I think that with the advent of AI, we're going to be moving into a completely different type of form of online discussion that is AI free, because we cannot, like, this whole thing of pushing content, pushing ads, creating, graphics. If AI can do it in a second, how do we know what's real and what's not?
Yeah.
And if we
It's
never will again.
It's something I think about a lot, and this would be, like, a
Mhm.
whole 'nother discussion if we wanted to go down it for, like, another hour of our lives. But, like, this book that I read, it's called Filter World. It's really
Mhm.
fascinating, and I one of the things that I kept thinking about is, how do you create outside of algorithm? How do you create anything with that any ability to have any success in any sort of market without
Mhm.
algorithm touching it? And I don't think that you can because
Can't
everywhere there is
Not unless
algorithm.
not unless you go back to your local community. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that the same way that capitalism is, every year it's gain on gain on gain on gain, and eventually you hit a tipping point where you can't gain anymore, right?
Mhm.
Like a Ponzi scheme, it's crashing down around us as we
Yeah.
speak. So I think that when you have that type of thing, the only thing that you can really rely on at that point is authenticity and human connection. And that is where I
Mhm.
think future generations are going to start going back to, like, when we were growing up, the idea of a commune was like a joke, right? Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, only
Oh, it's a
crazy people
dream
talk
now.
about.
It's a
And now,
dream now.
like, everybody is like, we all want to buy land and have our six families that we like, and we all want to grow up together with our kids. Like, that's
Yeah.
all anybody is thinking of anymore. And I think that that's why, like, we want to move to the small towns. We want to have the one bookstore that we go into and read the books. We want to have the physical people that we see every day. We want to have people who know our names when they come into the shop and say hello. Like, that's the dream.
Yeah.
That's literally what Can't Spell Treason Without Tea is selling. Like, it's not
Yeah, it's
about
like a lot of cozy fantasy is selling that. I want a walkable city where people know who I am and I'm
where people
invested in
know
the
who I am,
community.
and care about me as people,
Mhm.
like, not even that, just that they know, but they want me to succeed. Not that
Mhm.
they don't want me to succeed because they want to watch me crash and burn later, but like, because they genuinely want this shop to succeed, because they like what it adds to the community. And that's
Yeah,
something that I really do feel like we're going to be entering in the next decade. And it'll probably be for the best. There's going to be a
I hope so.
pain period where we're going to have to remember how to be human again and get off social media. When social media is all fake anyway, yeah, I mean, like, we've seen what's happened with Twitter and X. Like, they
Yeah.
destroyed that platform. And that's what I think is going to happen with AI. I think it's just going to destroy every platform, because if we can't trust what we're looking at, why would we waste our time there?
Why would we do it? Yeah.
Why would we do it? It's basically the same thing as turning on a TV and watching a fiction program at that point. And
Yeah.
a lot of people get their news on social media, but if you can't believe what you're seeing, how are you going to get your news? Does it matter
Yeah,
anymore? Like,
doesn't. No, I talk about this all the time with my friends about how, like, reality is warped, and I don't know what's real, and I know what's real, like, you and I are talking, this is the table,
yeah,
like, I know, like, that stuff, but,
yeah,
once you go online, it's like, what's real? What is what is being shown
it's
to me
something you get
because the
outraged and
computers
yeah.
yeah, is the
Hmm.
computer showing me this because, it's something I need to know, or is it because it's decided I need to know it? Um
Yeah.
what am I seeing? Is it true? Is it or is it just feeding into my own, like, echo chamber of things? And I
Right.
don't know,
Right.
it's social media. It's a whole different
Yeah, it's
ballgame.
a problem. Sometimes I'll trade out my phone, one of my friends' phones, just to see what their algorithm is showing them and see if it's any different than what my algorithm is showing me. Um,
It's always
so
different.
I was like, I always get some very different content just by handing my phone off to somebody else.
I bought jeans a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to one of my friends, and I said, "Oh, so, like, I keep seeing their ads, and it's Bobbity Boo," and they were like, "No, I've never seen that ad." I see
Yeah.
that ad every time I go on,
Yeah,
every
no,
time.
like my like Instagram too. Like they've realized that I like tattoos, so they're showing me just all these tattoo artists, and I'm just like, I don't
Mhm.
want another tattoo right now, but like,
Yeah,
thank you for showing me these. I guess like they're pretty,
yeah.
But they know that I stop and look at them, so they just keep. They're like, man, this girl must
It's
have a
true.
lot of tattoos. I'm like, I have one, thank you, and I get more
Please
maybe in the
stop.
future, but I'm not rushing to the tattoo salon. Like, thank you. So
Oh
yeah,
gosh. Alright. We could talk about that for ages, but we probably
yeah.
shouldn't. I have a couple, like, sort of wrapping up, nice kind of conclusion questions for you. What's your top advice for writers?
Don't quit. And I'm looking at you.
Me? I know, I'm
Yeah,
terrible.
all those half finished books, man. You're
Like, all those
so close.
hatchet books
I
just
mean,
waiting
God, they're
for
just you
somebody.
don't quit. I mean, I think that it's easy to get burned out. It's easy to get scared. It's easy to get angry about the world or sad about the way marketing is or upset about the way the publishing industry works. But the fact of the matter is that your story is going to resonate with somebody somewhere. And that's
Yeah,
what it's about. It's not about how big of a success you get. It's not about how many people read it. It's not about how much money you make. It's about getting your work out there because you're passionate about something and people love to talk with people with passions.
yeah.
So just get it out there, start writing, and at least you can check that box at the end of the day and say, I wrote a book. That's something
I
that not a
write
lot of people
something.
can say, like that's something that not a lot of people can advertise. So
Yeah, that is very true.
hmm.
And maybe one day I will finish my little fantasy novel.
Just write the final
It's not
babble. It's
even
easy.
that It's not even that little. I think we're almost at, like, 80,000 words, and it's not done yet. It's not that okay.
Write the final babble and then wrap it up and then do edits.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
yeah, and then just
easy.
do edits. Just do
And then
edits.
just do
Easy.
it. Easy. We can
Easy.
talk. I can talk about edits for a whole nother hour.
Alright, what's your favorite piece of life advice? Just general life advice.
Hmm. I don't know, it depends on the people I'm talking to. Like, I'm a very optimistic person, so I would be like, "Everything will be fine eventually." Like, that's probably my favorite thing of advice. It's like, look back at my life and I'm like, "Yeah, all those things that I was really stressed about in 5th when I was in, 5th grade and 6th grade didn't mean anything the minute I got into 7th grade and 8th grade." So, like, that has pretty much carried over through my entire life. Like, anything that I'm worried about right now, like, even the thing that I'm actually worried about right now, probably I won't be worried about it in 3 weeks. It'll probably be fine. Like,
It gets
probably
better.
fine.
It gets better.
Yeah, it
It
gets
sorts
better.
itself
Like
out.
just keep at it. That thing that you're stressing about, you probably don't need to stress about. And I know that that doesn't help because it doesn't stop the stress, but eventually it will.
Eventually.
Eventually it will. It's fine.
Alright. Um, what are a couple books you need everyone to read? Other than your own, obviously.
Oh, I mean, this is how you lose the time war before it became Bigelow big. I
Uh,
read that book twice a year. Like I love that book. I think it's just one of the best example. I like weird fiction. I like fiction that kind
yeah.
of takes things that I think I know and turns it on its head. So that book was a beautiful example of a differing timeline with these characters that I didn't really understand, but I loved anyway. I think that Gideon the Ninth is also one of those series that like has a cult following for a reason. Like it's like Harrow the Ninth. That book was honestly one of the best books I think I've ever read in my life. Like the fact that she took second person and made it a thing and had a
Mhm.
reason for it at the end. I was like, oh my God. I literally, like, I read that book and I stopped writing for like 3 weeks. I was like, what's the point? Like, what's the even fucking point? Like, I'll never be that good. I'll never be able to accomplish that. So I might as well stop now.
You will. You're wonderful. Stop it.
I don't know, man. So I think that those books are the ones that I like to recommend, the ones that make you think, the ones that show you something different. I enjoy those. I think they're fun. So
Excellent. I do love Gideon. It's definitely like the kind of book that you have to just like trust. Just
you would
trust.
literally
Just keep
like
going.
I read well, and like every time I think that I know what's going on, they introduce a new book, and then I'm like, oh, I have no idea what's going on. Like, I think I
Just
understand now, maybe, but then like Electo's coming out, and who the hell knows what's gonna happen with that? So like, God,
it's a ride. Go for the ride. Just go for the ride
yeah.
and enjoy where it takes you.
Mhm.
Anyway, so tell us again where you can find your book stuff, the general
The general.
spiel.
Yeah, so I've got a website, www.rebeccathorne with an E, REBECCATHORNE .net. That's my website. And then TikTok is Rebecca.Thorne at Rebecca.Thorne. And then Instagram is Rebecca Thorne Writes. So those are probably my three top ones. Like the website is updated for book releases. The TikTok and Instagram are where I post daily.
Mhm.
You can always email me if you want to, RebeccaThorneWrites@gmail.com. I read
Just
and
yell at
respond.
her,
Yeah, I read and
introducing
respond to
your
everything that comes my
characters.
way. So yeah, so I enjoy that. You can DM me on Instagram, but you can't DM me on TikTok because TikTok is just a crazier place, I think. So I get nicer DMs on Instagram than I do on TikTok. So I was like, forget this, I'm done.
I don't
So
think I'm big enough on TikTok to see that, but I will say that I think the YouTube algorithm pulls in some interesting people. I get
I got
comments
on
sometimes
YouTube
and
for
I'm
like a day
like,
and was like, no. Like I posted for a little while, but the editing process took so long with the videos that I was like,
yeah,
this is not worth my time. And then I started posting some of the shorts from my actual TikTok, and like, wow, the audience that they pulled for me was not at all what my
it's
audience is.
weird.
Apparently, I like my
It,
little echo chamber because it doesn't include homophobes. So
yes, it's a very weird place.
okay, thanks, appreciate.
We don't do that.
Yeah,
I remember posting for Trans Girl April, like there's a readathon or something last year, and
yeah,
the
yeah. I
things
remember that.
came. I was like, yeah, okay, you can take your dog
Yeah,
whistle somewhere else, sir. Thank you.
yeah, yeah,
Goodbye.
yeah. No, like literally, like at one point, I think they were accusing me of corrupting children, and I'm just like, my
Oh,
books are for
for
adults.
adults.
They're
Yeah,
for adults, but thank you for that.
thank you. Mhm. Well, there
I'll
was
go
that
find a
lovely
smile and
comment
find
that
out
was
if I
like,
really am corrupting them. You know?
well, there was your what was your comment that somebody left you that they really liked the books, but it had a lot of lesbians in it, and they weren't
Yeah,
like
I got
they weren't prepared for lesbians.
yeah, I got three different one-star reviews because my books had lesbians. Not because the book was bad, not because they didn't like something in it. They had lesbians and they weren't prepared. It slapped them upside the face, really.
It just
You know,
absolutely
yeah, those lesbians.
wasn't
So
it wasn't clear.
yeah,
So
well,
you
and
made
I'm
it
and I'm waiting
clearer.
for that. I'm waiting for that again because the Waterstones version, it does mention a sapphic romance, but not a lot of people know what sapphic is. And then it mentions that two friends leave their lives to open up a bookshop that serves tea, and I'm like, they're not friends, you know that, right? Like they're
They're
not roommates.
roommates.
They're roommates. They're roommates. You know, it's fine. So like, I'm fully prepared for another round of one-star reviews when people realize that there are two women involved. But I'm hoping because it's the UK, maybe they're more progressive than us. I'm
Maybe,
hoping
I
that.
don't know.
Yeah, we'll
They
see.
may I think Alison Rumfitt would maybe argue that they're not. But,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
they're
and I'm
gal
kind of over
pals,
here.
Rebecca.
Yeah, they're
They're
gal
gal
pals. Well,
pals.
and I'm sitting over here and I'm like, you know what? I hope they do give me more one-star reviews because I sold a lot of books off those last ones. Like, I think I probably sold 1,000 copies off of those three one-star reviews. I'll take it. Give me the money.
Yeah, no,
Good.
the money, you know what? However they sell, because it's a
Mhm.
great book
Yeah.
and I really love it, and I can't wait to see how the whole series ends. I
I'm
need more
excited.
dragons, and I'm yeah. So I'm just thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I really
Yeah, yeah.
appreciate
Thanks
it.
so
It's
much
nice to
for
actually like
inviting me. This is great. I'm like so thrilled to be back.
yeah, and like we're like not just parasocial now. We're like
Yeah,
sort of
it's
social.
perfect. Yeah,
Yeah,
we were social before. I know exactly who you are. she,
yeah.
she was
So
just like, yeah, like nerdy nurse reads. I'm like, yeah, I'm on it.
yeah,
I'm ready to go.
I was like, give it to me. She emailed me and I was like, yes. And I
And
could I would love an arc, I'm because I wanna see how it changes. I now have just, like, a stack of I think I have too many iterations of this book at this point for somebody
I
who didn't
mean,
write it,
same though. Like, yeah.
but you wrote
And I feel bad because like every time
it.
I come out with a new version, I'm like, hey guys, go spend money on this new version. Everyone's like, stop putting out new versions. I'm like, no.
No, you have to,
No,
but
that's where my money is coming from.
that's
Please
where
go buy my
money comes
book.
from. And if, you want something darker, meatier, more murderous, please
Yes.
go read Gilded Abyss, and maybe that will push Rebecca to finish the next
Yeah, and
book.
maybe by the time you hear this, the sequel will be in the works. We'll see.
You know what, you could just decide to write it in a month.
Yeah, I could, and that's why I'm
Be
frustrated
done.
that I haven't. I'm just like, oh my god, you know that I know this is faster. I know it is. I just, still a
You'll
struggle.
get it done.
I'll
You'll
I'll
get
get
it
there.
done.
I'll get there. It'll be good.
Yeah.
It'll be worth it
Yeah.
when it's done. I'm just contemplating what I want it to look like. So we'll
It
see.
will, and, I'm sure you'll break my heart multiple times, and I will love every minute of it.
Probably. Yeah.
Mhm. Well,
Mhm.
thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Check Rebecca out, please, and, Can't Spell Treason Without T is out on May 7th, so pick it up, please.
Exciting stuff.
It's very
All right. Well,
exciting.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think